Welcome. I'm Karen Condit, and I'll be sharing some important things with you today about setting goals. Here in NEISD, we take this task pretty seriously, and I hope to share with you why these goals are so important. Here's a quick agenda with the things that we'll be covering today. We'll talk a lot about student folders that you keep in your class. We'll take a look at the folder checklists. We'll briefly review goal setting for students and for teachers. I'll also tell you how you can get PD credit for this by way of an exit ticket activity. Okay, let's get this show on the road, shall we? We'll start with the student folders. To begin with, every student needs one. That's right, you need to have a student folder for each of your students. These folders need to stay in your classroom somewhere, and they need to be locked up. These folders need to be kept neatly, and by that, I mean that we should be able to go to the classroom, pull the folders out, and open them up for an auditor. What? Someone else will see these? Yep, that's exactly what I mean, which brings me to the next point, the folder checklist. The checklists were created to help you keep order in these folders. Following this video in Doc 1, you'll find a copy of the checklist. Another reason for the checklist is to remind you to keep only the required things in the folders, nothing extra. Now ask yourself, what do you need to have neat and orderly folders? Do you need hanging folders or files? Manila folders, maybe? Perhaps you need a file box because you don't have a filing cabinet. Let me know what you need, and we'll see what we can do about getting those things for you. I mentioned earlier that Doc 1 was a copy of the checklist that needs to be in every folder. Briefly, here's what's included on that document. A goal sheet, a group project, a writing sample, oral presentation, and the ever-popular mid-session review of goals. You'll also have places for comments on the group project and the oral presentation. It is acceptable for you to keep more than one sample of any of these things in the folder. For example, I've always liked keeping a beginning writing sample and one from later on in the term so that the students can see their progress. Please don't keep unrelated things in the folders because they're not really created for storage purposes. Remember what I told you about the auditor's visit. We want to make an audit quick and painless. Help us out. To clarify the checklists a bit, there are instructions for ESL and for HSE teachers. These instructions don't need to be in the student folders, but they are provided for you so that you can see how the checklist was generated and give you an idea of what to expect of your students. On the instructions, you'll notice that the expectations for the different levels include the phrase, by the end of the year, the student will be able to. Keep that in mind as you plan the components to be checked off. If you are at the beginning of the term, the middle of the term, or at the end of the term, your expectations should reflect that. There is some room for interpretation here. On the instruction sheets, you will be able to see where these checklist items came from. ESL items came from the ELP standards, and the HSE items came from the NRS standards. Please don't think that the checklist is a once-and-done deal. This year, we have a new checklist for each term for each student. It's very possible that students will be progressing and moving at the end of the term, so the clock starts again for them. For sanity's sake, staple the old term's contents together and put a new checklist in the folder of continuing students, and begin the new term at the same place for your continuing students as for your new ones. I must say once more that keeping the folders and content requirements is a very important job, so fit that housekeeping task into your routine. What about goals, you say? They're supposed to be in those folders too, aren't they? Yes, indeed, and I'm glad you didn't forget about that. These goal sheets are very important. Okay, so we need to do goals, but what's the point really? In the first place, the goals are required by TWC. Now, we've done goals for our students even before we got involved with the workforce, but their requirement puts added importance on doing the goal setting. Goal setting really helps the students begin to design their future, and using the SMART goals method offers a way of focusing a person's efforts. We have different goals worksheets for different levels of classes. There's a checklist style worksheet for ESL Basic 1 and 2. Now, ESL 3 might want to start with the checklist style and then use the checklist to complete the fill-in-the-blank worksheet. The second style, or fill-in-the-blank worksheet, is used for ESL 3 and 4 along with HSE students. Docs 4 and 5 have the two different goals worksheets for you to look at and to copy if you need to. Goals should be done each term. So who needs a goals sheet filled out? You already know that all students that come into your class need to set goals. This is ideally done the first week of the term with the whole class. But let's face it, you will have some students showing up throughout the term. For the beginning of the term, you will create a lesson in your plans for the first week. Talk with the entire class and use class time to fill out the worksheets. Then put them in the folders. You know, those neat and orderly folders. For those who show up later in the term, you will put them on a computer and let them watch the goal setting video on the HSE page of this website. They will then be prompted to ask you for a worksheet to fill out. You'll look it over and put it in their folder. La la. All done. Now, you may need to make special arrangements for ESL Basic students who come later in the term. Think creatively as you decide how to work on goals with them. Be reminded that we use the SMART goals approach to setting goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-sensitive goals. Not to complicate things further, but keep in mind that we help our students look at short and long-term goal setting. Again, the video for setting goals is on this website on the HSE page and is labeled as the Goal Setting Video. As an aside, the TANF students should also watch the orientation video on that page because they are required by TWC to have an orientation. We believe the video fills that requirement. At the end of the orientation video, the students will be prompted to ask for their policies and procedures agreement to sign. TANF teachers need to have those on hand. Hang in there. We're almost done. Yay! Here's what to do to receive a certificate of completion and professional development credit. First, check out Doc 1 after this video. That's the folder checklist. Then choose the appropriate doc for instructions for your students. You may want to print these off. Remember, the students don't need a copy of the instructions. Secondly, watch the goal setting video on the HSE page to familiarize yourself with what you need to tell your students. Thirdly, update your goal sheet from the beginning of the year. Don't you remember doing that in July at our teacher training? Of course I still have them, and you can zip me an email and I will scan and send it to you, or you can stop by and I will give it to you. If you're a new teacher, I will send you a worksheet to fill out. Then, fill out the exit ticket activity that follows this video. Upon completion of these things, I will email you a certificate of completion worth 1.5 PD hours. That's right, folks. You'll receive your very own certificate of completion for 1.5 PD hours for watching this little video and doing the exit ticket activity. You can do this. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you feel a little more empowered as you begin a new term. Onward!